If you're silent enough, you can hear your own heartbeat. Imagine a life where you were so silent, continuously silent, where no matter what you did, you could always hear your heartbeat. Imagine the kind of silence that would be required for that kind of life. Right now I'm talking, I can't even hear my heartbeat. So fuck that idea. But imagine I could. But then imagine speaking in such a way that you're so present that your speech is your heartbeat. And so you're not sitting there scrambling to be so silent, because that's noisy. But instead, you have the faith and the knowledge that your speaking is your heart beating. How phenomenal would that be? Right now, I know that my words are my heart. Do you know how I know that? Because fundamentally, I am totally silent right now. You hear my words. But if you are listening closely, if you are listening with your heart, you will hear that I am silent while I'm speaking. Because there is a certain tonality and quality to speech that is silent. That's why I sit and meditate beforehand. Speech that is silence, speech that is the heartbeat. So I don't have to literally hear my heartbeat while I'm speaking, although that would be a fabulous paranormal ability if I had it. Don't seek to cultivate that. There are other things to cultivate. Today I learned something truly phenomenal. I had known it in a roundabout, indirect, vague way. But I was watching an interview with a really marvelous woman named Bibi Bacchus. She was thrown in prison for 7 years. She was kind of plucked out of her life by a corrupt policeman and sentenced by a corrupt court. She was a real estate agent. She sold houses, and one man wanted to buy a house and he was using laundered money, and she got caught up in that, and all of a sudden she was studying law in a prison cell for 7.5 years. Imagine the kind of silence that occurs, the kind of heartbeat that occurs when you're in a prison cell for 7 years for a crime you did not commit. So this marvelous little one, Bibi Bacchus, what a name. I don't think you can make up names that are that cool. B.B. Bacchus. B. Bacchus. You feel and hear the heartbeat there in the silence of her name, B.B. Bacchus. She's in a prison cell studying the law because she's got all the time in the world on her hands. B.B. Bacchus. B.B. Bacchus. Studying the law, but not just studying the law. She's studying the law with her soul on the line, her skin in the game. She is wholly, completely, totally, unreservedly invested in that pursuit of the law. Because she wants to know how in the world she got thrown in prison on bogus charges and sentenced by a bogus court. So she came to understand the really, really deep esoteric aspects of the law that get totally obscured by the legalese. I was reading a meme from the interview, because the interview was high production, and occasionally they'd flash different things on the screen, and one of them was a meme, and it was written in legalese, and I didn't even know what to make of it. I recognized that it was something legislative, and it was in the English language. Well, she studied all that legalese for 7 years. Her heart beating in that prison cell. And she came to an understanding of basically what's called contract law. And she says it's all a matter of contracts. And she starts off the interview talking about the straw man, which is a spiritually dead entity that's created by essentially photocopying the birth certificate. A woman gives birth to a child, gets her own birth certificate, but then there is a copy made of that. And that copy is the straw man, spiritually dead entity that is essentially monetized as a bond. And it is then owned by a corporation that then trades it, has value on it. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't fully understand the process. I watched that part of the video twice. I'm going to have to watch it again because this isn't my native territory. I'm having to learn this for the first time. But essentially, our birth certificate is created into a bond that has value that is traded on the stock market for millions of dollars. And I naturally wondered, well, are some people worth more because they're, black, white, Native American, Asian, whatever, male, female? And Sasha Stone, the interviewer, was like, how much is a 50-year-old man worth? And she was like, hundreds of millions of dollars. Can you hear your heartbeat right now? So then there's the signature, and then there's the autograph. She talks about that. The autograph is what you do in person. You go to a celebrity and say, can I have your autograph? The signature is different. It's what you put on the dotted line. And those signatures have value. And every time that you're signing something, a contract, you are signing it against that bond, and there is basically a legal authority over you every time you sign into that. Gotta be honest, I don't really understand it because it's all so foreign to me. And that's what's happened as a result of living in the 21st century. What happens is it's so Kafkaesque. Now you just gotta start studying. And you've just gotta start researching. And you're gonna come up with stuff that you just don't get. It's so outside the periphery of your common sense, beyond the pale of your indoctrination, otherwise known as your education, that you're like, I don't even get this, and I'm apparently a smart person. And yes, it's just this impenetrable legalese. And it is a curlicue labyrinth Byzantium for a reason. It's so that you don't understand it. It's the inverted doublespeak. For example, the Federal Reserve. That's not a federal government entity, that is a private corporation. Right? It was started back in like 1914 by a bunch of rich people. So, what I realized is that, and I'd known this, but you kind of got to come at your servitude and your bondage and your slavery from all these different angles. And the law angle is just so profound, because she's like, those judges, they're just corporate employees. And when you go into the courtroom, it's really under the military. It's like a military tribunal. And she was like, when I went in there during this bogus trial, I was like, this is all theater. She had the sense that it was all a sham. And she was locked up for so long, and the entire time she's like, I need to figure out what this sham actually is. She knew she was completely innocent. Right? And I can't remember the name of the law that she says is basically the kind of uber framework for all law underneath it, but it has something to do with contract. It's like contract law, core contract law, something like that. But there's a sense that's so profound that we all have. Well, I don't know if we all have it, but let's say most of us. And it does have to do with that heartbeat. Right? Imagine a heartbeat that you could feel when you speak. The heartbeat is in your words. It's in your face. It's in your hands. It's in your body. And I'm not saying it's the literal heartbeat, although it is. I'm just saying that the pulse of your authentic being is so real. And people can understandably get so discontent with the falsity around them. And yet you've got your heartbeat. You've got your breath. You've got these things that are so real and true. And then you have all these means outside of you for sabotaging this natural truthfulness of your being, this natural rhythm. Because what happens when we live in a world that sabotages truth? Our heartbeat gets irregular. Our breath. Or you. Our body knows there's been a violation. Our body knows it's been enslaved. Our body knows it's subjugated. Our body experiences all this as a state of stress. And yet, we get acclimated to that stress. We are traded on the stock market without even knowing it. Who is trading us on the stock market? According to B.B. Bacchus, I don't know. She also made some other very fascinating point. She's like, of course the British Empire never ended. It just went underground and then becomes all these different institutions, all these different banks and courts. And it still owns all this land across the planet. And she's like, the Vatican, no, that didn't end. Well, I mean, the Roman Empire and the Vatican. She's like, no, it's all sublimated. And it's all subsumed. And we're told that these things ended. We're told that there were all these proclamations and edicts that ended slavery throughout the 19th century. We are told by our masters that slavery ended. But we know our native discontent, but we don't know how to put our finger on it. We just feel it all the time. What is causing this native discontent? This indigenous depression? This virtually organic nihilism? It's being born into the womb of slavery, popped out into the world and being dishonored from the moment we take our first breath. For example, circumcision. How in the world did that get normalized? Well, you could see it. What happens to the male when you cut off its foreskin? You traumatize the male. The first thing the male really experiences that is far and beyond anything else with respect to sensation value is cutting off its foreskin. I mean, sucking its mother's breast milk is great. Getting held in its arms is great. Receiving that kind of love, but that's all fucking negated once you cut off his foreskin. And the whole point in traumatizing a male upon entering this world is that you severely emasculate that infant. Because that infant is instantly programmed and conditioned to think that the world is unsafe. And you better play it small. You better avoid all these things that could hurt you. So you're conditioned to fear. You're conditioned to think that things are going to come and get you. So you don't want to provoke them. You need to play it small. You need to be a slave or you will be hurt by the world. That's what circumcision is about. There is no heartbeat in that. It is a grotesquely insane practice that has been normalized. And for the male, and for everyone, because that male affects all of society. The billions of males who have been circumcised are affecting the whole planet. I'm not kidding you. When you are born into a world and you are severely traumatized within the first few weeks or months of life, you are not a male who is likely to stand up to anything. You think I'm kidding? There are males who do stand up, but they have to really work hard to overcome that initial traumatization. But do you know how hard it is for so many men in this world, on this planet, to be men? In the 21st century, they're a bunch of fucking pussies. Emasculated. And the ones who do have masculinity, so much of that masculinity is hijacked by corporate jobs or going out and shooting fucking ducks in the backwoods. It's not a masculinity that is about liberating the human race. It is a masculinity that is co-opted. So even if you do overcome the traumatization of circumcision and all the innumerable grades of emasculation that come after that circumcision, what are you going to do with this masculinity that you finally salvaged and retrieved from the abyss of trauma? You're going to go and make six figures at a fucking corporation? You're going to go out and hunt ducks on your weekend in your fucking camouflage? Why don't you fucking figure out a way to work with other men to stop being traded on the stock market? To stop having little boys circumcised? Why can't you see through the confusion? Why can't you dedicate your life to the truth? Because you were circumcised and you were emasculated your whole life. And I'll hear your heartbeat. Your heartbeat's not in your words. Your heartbeat's not in your truth. heartbeat is not in your life.